The morning light came in gently through the front windows, touching the hardwood floors with a soft glow. It was the kind of light that made everything feel possible, even when life had been difficult for a while. Daniel Harper stood near the doorway of his small rental home, adjusting the cuffs of his gray shirt. He was 37 years old, tall and steady, with dark hair brushed carefully back. He had always taken pride in looking put together, even on the hardest days. In his left hand, he held a thin black folder, his resume neatly printed. References lined up, hope pressed between those pages like a fragile bookmark. Beside him stood his daughter, Lily. Lily was 5, with light brown hair that curled softly at the ends and bright, searching eyes. She wore a pale pink dress with tiny flowers scattered across it, the fabric slightly wrinkled because she had insisted on putting it on herself. In her small hands, she held a drawing a house with a yellow sun above it and 3 stick figures holding hands. Daniel knelt down in front of her. "Remember," he said gently, "Daddy just needs to talk to some people. Y'all sit quietly, okay?" Lily nodded in that serious way children do when they want to be brave. "I can be quiet," she whispered. Daniel smiled, though there was worry behind his eyes. The babysitter had canceled at the last minute. He had no family nearby. And this interview, this one mattered more than the others. It was for a position at a local manufacturing company that had been around for decades. A place with health insurance, stability, something solid, something he hadn't felt since his wife, Emily, passed 3 years earlier. They arrived at the company headquarters just before 9. The building was older but well cared for, brick walls, tall windows, a modest American flag near the entrance. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. The receptionist, a woman in her late 40s with kind eyes and silver streaks in her hair, looked up as they approached. "Good morning," she said warmly. Daniel cleared his throat. "Good morning. I have a 9 o'clock interview. Daniel Harper." The receptionist glanced at Lily, then back at Daniel. She didn't frown. She didn't sigh. She simply smiled a little wider. "She's welcome to sit right here with me," she said gently. "I've raised 3 boys. I can handle one little lady." Daniel hesitated, but Lily squeezed his hand. "It'll be right here, Daddy," she whispered. He bent down and kissed the top of her head. Then he walked down the hallway, shoulders straight, heart pounding. Lily climbed carefully onto the chair beside the receptionist's desk. She placed her drawing on her lap and swung her legs softly. The receptionist offered her a small paper cup of water and a cookie from a tin she kept nearby. "Is that your picture?" the woman asked. Lily nodded. "It's for my dad, so he won't be nervous." The receptionist's eyes softened. "That's very thoughtful." About 10 minutes later, the glass doors at the end of the lobby opened quietly. A woman stepped inside, tall, poised, wearing a simple white blouse tucked into dark blue jeans. Her blonde hair was gathered neatly at the back of her head. She carried no briefcase, no show of authority, but there was something steady about her presence. This was Margaret Lawson, the CEO. She had built her reputation over 20 years' practical decisions, honest leadership, a deep belief that companies were made of people, not just profits. At 59, she had seen enough of life to recognize sincerity when she saw it. Margaret paused when she noticed Lily. "Well, hello there," she said, kneeling slightly so they were eye to eye. "Who might you be?" "I'm Lily," the little girl answered. "My dad's talking to someone about a job." Margaret smiled. "That sounds important." Lily nodded solemnly and held up her drawing. "This is so he won't be scared." Margaret took the picture carefully. The sun in the corner was bright yellow, drawn with wide looping rays. The 3 figures stood together beneath it, hand in hand. "Is this your family?" Margaret asked softly. Lily pointed. "That's me. That's Daddy. And that's Mommy." She paused, then added quietly, "Mommy lives in heaven now." The words were simple, honest, uncomplicated. Margaret felt something stir in her chest. She had lost her own husband nearly 10 years earlier. She remembered the silence that filled a house afterward, the way ordinary mornings felt heavier. "That's a beautiful picture," she said gently. "Your dad is very lucky." Lily beamed. At that moment, Daniel's interview was concluding down the hallway. He had spoken carefully. He had explained the gap in his employment, the months spent caring for Emily during her illness, the adjustments afterward. He had spoken not with self-pity, but with quiet resilience. The hiring manager had thanked him politely. "Well, be in touch," he had said, words Daniel had heard before. Daniel walked back toward the lobby, bracing himself for uncertainty. He stopped short when he saw Lily standing beside a woman he recognized from the company website. Margaret Lawson. For a moment, his stomach dropped. "I'm so sorry," Daniel began quickly. "I had no choice this morning. My sitter canceled and Margaret raised a hand gently. You don't need to apologize." She looked at Lily. "Your daughter has been keeping me company." Daniel's face softened as he looked at Lily. "She's good at that." Margaret studied him for a moment, the careful way he stood, the faint tiredness around his eyes, the way he rested his hand protectively on his daughter's shoulder. "Walk with me," she said simply. They moved toward a small seating area near the windows. The late morning light streamed in, warming the quiet space. Margaret sat across from Daniel, Lily nestled beside him. "I've reviewed your resume," she said calmly. "Your qualifications are solid, but what matters to me more is something I can't always measure on paper." Daniel listened carefully. "I built this company with my husband," Margaret continued. "After he passed, I realized something important. Work matters, but people matter more, especially the ones who show up, even when life is heavy." Daniel swallowed. "I don't want sympathy," he said gently. "I just want the chance to work, to provide. My daughter deserves stability," Margaret nodded, "and she deserves to see her father respected." There was a pause, the kind that feels full, not empty. Margaret smiled at Lily. "Would you like to see something special?" Lily's eyes widened. Margaret stood and motioned for them to follow her down the hallway past framed photographs of the company's early days, black and white images of workers in denim shirts, machinery from another era. It felt like walking through history. They stopped at a corner office with wide windows overlooking the parking lot and the trees beyond. "This is my office," Margaret said. Lily looked around, impressed by the tall bookshelves and the large wooden desk. Margaret knelt again and handed Lily back her drawing. "You helped your dad more than you know today," she said. Then she turned to Daniel. "I would like to offer you the position," she said plainly. "Full time, benefits included. Starting Monday." Daniel blinked, unsure he had heard correctly. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. Margaret nodded. "I've learned that good character is harder to find than perfect resumes, and your daughter has already shown me what kind of home you're building." Daniel's eyes filled, though he kept his composure. He had promised himself he would stay steady, no matter the outcome. "Thank you," he said, voice low and sincere. "You won't regret it," Margaret smiled gently. "I don't believe I will." As they walked back toward the lobby, Lily slipped her small hand into her father's. "Daddy," she whispered, "you're not scared anymore." He looked down at her, sunlight catching in her curls. "No," he said softly. "I'm not." Outside, the air felt warmer than before. The world hadn't changed entirely. Bills would still come. Responsibilities would remain. But something had shifted. A door opened, a kindness extended, a future steadied. Sometimes life doesn't turn on grand events or loud applause. Sometimes it turns on a simple drawing, on a receptionist's kindness, on a leader who remembers what loss feels like. For those of us who have lived long enough to know that joy and sorrow often sit side by side, the lesson is gentle but clear. Kindness travels farther than we imagine. And on an ordinary Tuesday morning, in a quiet office building with polished floors and soft light, a little girl helped her father begin again.